Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, looking back, I'm sure you have to be happy though that the way the whole TNA thing worked out. You just said it. It worked out. It worked out for the best. You are where you are. Scott D'Amore is, and Anthem's where they're at. And it sounds like you're at a good place with it all.
Yeah, it's funny sometimes because this is a self-serving comment, but I don't mind heat in wrestling. Like, and I'm talking about fan heat. Like, we don't like what you're doing. That's all good. We all hear it if you work in the business. The thing that I always find kind of strange when people are dogpiling on a promotion, running down the book or whatever, is like, is the goal to run the company out of business? Because that puts the boys out of work. And there's nothing that I would want for the business, even if I'm not in the business, where the boys don't have work. I'm happy to provide jobs, but I'm also happy to see other people provide jobs. I don't see how that's ever a bad thing. And back to what I was saying before, I think, there's many comparisons: movies, music, food. Wrestling is better when there is a greater diversity of styles, booking, champions, gifted people. I always point out, talking about the AWA, that when I was a kid, I loved Jerry Blackwell, who was, certainly not in shape. Adrian Adonis, at least in my time, when I remember, was certainly not in shape. Both men were great workers. They could go, they told great stories, and I believed them. So I love that there's this kind of different approach, opportunity, and that one company wants everybody to be in perfect shape and look like, they stepped out of a magazine. With the NWA, if you can go, I don't care who you are. You get the doors open.
Sizes, yes, that's great. That's great, Billy. Hey, what was the biggest glaring hole in TNA back then?
You talking about our time together?
Yeah.
I think that's a great question. It kind of shocks me in hindsight. And I was talking about this with one of the NWA guys the other day. And you remember, we got so much SHIT back then for that roster and that booking. But when you look at that roster, I think anybody would be a fan of that product today. So that's very strange to me. It seemed a lot of the heat was around Dixie, right? Some of it deserved, some of it not deserved. But I wish there was a better way to, in fact, here's a conversation with Paul Heyman. I went to Dixie one time. I was not involved in, I was not in professional wrestling. I was just a fan coming to hanging out. Dixie takes me to lunch at one of her fancy Nashville restaurants, and we're sitting in there, and all the rumors, in the Observer and all that, the rumors were she was going to let Heyman take over the company. So imagine me, I'm just a fan. I don't know, Jack, what about professional wrestling other than what I've been told? I'm sitting at a table, and she says, if you were me, would you hire Paul Heyman? I said, give him whatever he wants. And she told me what he wanted. It was a big pile of money, and he wanted absolute total control. And in fact, I don't know if you ever saw this interview, Kurt, and I remember it quite clearly. He gave one interview that I remember where he later said, after the whole thing didn't happen and he was back working with WWE or whatever, he gave an interview where he said what he would have done. And he said he would have cleaned out every veteran except you. He would have kept Kurt Angle and went all completely young and went more MMA shooter style. Very interesting.
Yeah.
But back to the conversation with Dixie. I said, please give him whatever he wants. She goes, well, and you've had these conversations with Kurt. Well, he wants this and he wants that and he wants to control my company. And I said, please
give it to him.
Give it to him.
Yeah.
Number one, your ratings will double overnight. Number two, you get all the smart marks off your back instantly. Number three, they'll hail you as a genius for bringing in Heyman. Number four, the company will be on fire within 6 months. I guarantee it. Just do it. She's like, well, what about giving up control? I said, I don't care. Just give it to him. I mean, I begged her. Imagine what that company could have been with that roster, or whoever he would have brought in.
Yeah.
That would have been hot fire.
Yeah. So, why didn't she do it?
I think it goes very much to my situation with her, is she was very reluctant to give up control. Now, to be fair, let's make both arguments quickly. To be fair, I run the NWA completely. I'm not in a big hurry to give up control.
True.
Even if it was Paul Heyman, I'd have to really think about it, because he's going to flip around what I want to do. He's going to bring in his boys and get rid of maybe some of the guys that I'm partial to. Wrestling is very much based on loyalty and who you trust. And maybe my company spins out of control in a way that I can't control. So to be fair, maybe that was her reservation. Now, to be critical, everything that she had done up to that point was not working. She was getting creamed weekly. The ratings were going down. She was having trouble with TV deals. That's a moment, I think, then you tap and you say, okay. And maybe there would have been how can I put it? She goes to Heyman and say, I'll give you the job. I'll give you what you want. You'll have total control. But I got to have one person in there that's my person. So at least if I got to get rid of you, he's slipstreaming you, whether it's Dutch Mantel or so. I got to have somebody in there that's loyal to me. So if you try to steal my company, or I feel like this is F to what you're doing, I can kind of at least reel it back.